Richard? Blimey, is that you? Oh, it's okay, mate.
Are you prepared for something just a little bit different? A somewhat unique viewing experience, you might say. We are talking Ghost Party, and this is directed by Brad Keller. So what makes this such a unique experience? This is a very hard film to quantify because it's only partially a film and partially a live stage production. What, you might be saying? So, if you've ever gone to see a live play, and I'm not talking like a musical, you know, an actual kind of play, it's essentially that, one set, you know, kind of casts doing kind of long kind of sequences and things like this, but not in front of a live audience, and kind of edited in a way that so we have different camera angles, different shots, and even a little bit of VFX added to the kind of the proceedings as well. But we still have, like, you know, the cardboard backgrounds and things like this, the kind of the one sort of like location, and that kind of that kind of made for children's TV film, I guess you would say. But it is, you know, it has a story arc. It's, like I said, it's got editing with different kind of like angles, close-ups, a few VFX. So it's really a hybrid between an actual movie and a kind of a live stage production. Like I said, it's not a laugh track, it's not filmed in front of a live audience, but they actually play it kind of like they would be. Because, for example, there's a few pauses where the audience is expected to laugh and a few kind of jokes and things like this. So it's a very odd experience. Now, the question becomes then is like, you know, how do you rate this type of production? Because obviously it's made for people who like kind of live theatre, and you know, it's not trying to be like a genuine horror film or a blockbuster or a, you know, a riveting kind of effects driven action film. It's trying to be what it is trying to be. So does it succeed in that? And that's kind of how I try to approach a review like this. It's kind of like, okay, is it succeeding in the kind of like the mission that it's out to do? Let's talk about the story first of all, then we'll kind of go into it a little bit more and what I think worked, didn't work. So the story mainly focuses on this young couple, this young guy and this girl who are kind of paranormal researchers slash kind of like spirit mediums, that kind of thing. And the young guy is actually a member of this kind of particular family of this house where they're visiting, this kind of large stately house, which is owned by this family, and the male kind of like paranormal researcher is actually kind of part of that family, and he's brought his girlfriend on to actually do a seance on Halloween night to contact a particular kind of spirit. Now the girl doesn't really know the kind of the family history, but as it turns out, this house actually is haunted by a variety of different ghosts, and it's kind of like a family legacy, and this party is actually for these spirits. However, there is one other spirit which is kind of the crux of the story, that being the spirit of Jack the Ripper. And this guy is being a kind of a spirit medium. He is tasked to try and kind of essentially deal with this kind of the spirit of Jack the Ripper, so to speak. Now, we get kind of some comedy, we get sort of like family drama, not really scared, but obviously, you know, it's a supernatural based story. Now, what will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's talk about the elephant in the room. If you don't like kind of live theatre, you're not going to like this because it doesn't pretend to be anything else. This really is, if you were kind of looking at a rehearsal, for example, for a stage show done to completion with the added kind of bonus of different kind of camera angles, special effects, you know, that kind of thing, musical swells, all this sort of thing. So, you know, if you don't like live theatre, you aren't going to like this because it's not pretending to be anything different. This movie skews very young. So if you have a a younger audience member, a younger member of the family that might maybe want to watch a horror light movie, they may want to watch this, but it is a lot of talking. I think the idea is quite a fun, narrative thread, basically, this kind of spirit medium and this family kind of secret with all these kind of ghosts that that kind of collude and have this kind of like pact with each other and things like this, and how it kind of relates to this kind of like Jack the Ripper certain thing. It actually, in some points, kind of reminds me of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Our two young protagonists, for example, kind of remind me of the protagonists from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They're kind of like these nerdy sort of characters and things like this. So I actually quite like some of the kind of the story elements here, and it is kind of like light, wholesome fun to a certain degree. Now, this plays by the actors. It plays like a theatre production rather than a movie. So it's kind of theatre acting. So I think some people will probably have some issue with the acting, but it's kind of, when I talk about theatre acting, I've mentioned this in a couple of reviews, people are over projecting because they need to kind of like be able to project to the entirety of the room and be very clear. So it gives it a certain type of acting where it seems a little unnatural, to be honest, if you're looking at it in the context of what you've seen in a film. But that's this type of acting, So don't be put off by, I think, the acting and stuff, because it's relevant to the medium that they're trying to do. I don't know who this movie is really for, whether it's for, horror fans, movie fans, theatre fans, because with theatre fans would have watched like a kind of a filmed version of it, and actual cinema fans who watch normal films would want to see a very kind of loosely produced kind of like horror drama comedy all in one location with minimal kind of like production and things like this. It's an odd choice to make, but I gotta say I appreciate this uniqueness of the product, so to speak. And like I said, I do think there are some ideas here that were interesting. I quite liked, if we're talking about the kind of a stage play, this kind of set design of this stage play, it's paintings on the wall for windows and stuff. It's not meant to be kind of like realistic. It's meant to just kind of give you the flavour of this kind of gothic kind of stately manner and stuff like that. So, I've actually seen a few kind of like plays, and even seen a few horror plays, and I quite enjoy them. This skews quite young, to be honest, which leads me into, I think, what doesn't work. It's just because I feel well, there is a film, it is a movie, but it kind of feels like it's aiming for a younger audience, but I don't know if younger people would be interested in a very, very dialogue-driven film like this with not a lot of kind of spectacle. Maybe if you were to see this live, it would kind of be a bit more kind of dramatic, a bit more kind of interesting, a bit more engaging. But because you're watching this as a film, I really don't know if it's all that engaging, to be honest, because you're not viewing it in the medium that it was designed for, so to speak. Even though, like I said, there are some attempts here to kind of vary up the shots and the kind of the VFX and the musical stuff, it still very much feels like a kind of a stage play. Although I did like some of the story elements here, some of it doesn't really make sense. I mean, Jack the Ripper obviously was in England, yet this is clearly an American production, and the time frame seems a bit wonky here, things like this. They're talking about texting and modern stuff, and then there's elements here that seem like they should be from an older period of time, and I know the ghosts have been around, but we're not even talking about the ghosts to a certain degree. So, there are things here that I think the story just kind of like goes, just move on sort of thing. As I've said, the acting, I can appreciate why they're doing it like this. So I won't critique the acting too much, because I understand this is a different style of acting compared to films. But for someone who doesn't really think about it like that, I feel they'll go into it and think, oh, the acting was terrible, because they were kind of overacting. but that's the reason for it. You know, it's kind of, like I say, theatre acting. They're trying to project. It's ultimately, I think, a little dull, to be honest, because it's very much just a dialogue-driven film, and I think you can kind of get engaged with it if you were to see it live. And I think the audience, having the lack of audience there, and the kind of the laughing and the clapping and what have you, and even having the kind of the cast members almost pause where there would have been like a kind of audience reaction, kind of gives it this weird kind of unnatural feeling. So ultimately, I think this is somewhat of an experiment. I don't know if it really landed in maybe the way that they would want, but I do appreciate a unique, you know, flavour of entertainment to a certain degree. But I really would question where is the audience for this, because I honestly think that, you know, that's going to be the ultimate issue here. If you really like plays and you really like live entertainment, you may enjoy this, but then I think you'd probably go and see a play, you know, rather than watching a movie on streaming or DVD or something. I have to be honest, I think this is a below average film, but I appreciate the attempt to do something a little different. So I'll give this one a 4 out of 10. I don't think it's a horrible film. There has good story ideas, and I appreciate its somewhat unique flavour. So it's a 4 out of 10, but ultimately I think it's not going to be for many people. Have you seen it? Would you see it? Maybe more importantly, please do let me know, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.